The shocking truth about American cereal. Why Europe says no. Part 1. A sweet morning mystery. Imagine this. It's early morning in a typical American household. The kitchen fills with the sound of cereal pouring into a bowl, the clinking of a spoon, and the splash of cold milk. For decades, breakfast cereal has been a symbol of convenience, childhood joy, and even nostalgia. From colorful boxes featuring cartoon mascots to catchy jingles that still live in our heads, cereal has become more than food. It's part of American culture. But here's the twist. While American families start their day with these sugary, crunchy bites, many European countries have raised a red flag. In fact, some popular U.S. cereals are outright banned or heavily restricted across the Atlantic. Why? What's hiding in those innocent-looking flakes and loops that makes Europe say, absolutely not? To answer that, we need to step back and trace the fascinating journey of cereal, from its surprisingly health-focused origins in the late 19th century to the bright, sugar-coated industry it is today. Along the way, we'll uncover how a product that started as a reformer's dream turned into a global controversy. This isn't just a story about breakfast. It's about the clash between food culture, government regulation, and corporate power. It's about why the very same cereal box can be a beloved childhood memory in America, but a public health concern in Europe. And most importantly, it's about what this means for you, the consumer, the parent, the health-conscious eater. So let us begin our journey. How did cereal rise from a simple health experiment into one of the most profitable and controversial foods of the modern era? Part 2. The characters and foundations, the birth of cereal and its colorful icons. To understand why American cereal became both a cultural phenomenon and a global controversy, we must rewind to the late 1800s, when breakfast looked very different from what we know today. Back then, a proper morning meal in the United States was heavy. Think steak, fried potatoes, eggs, and biscuits. It was filling, but also exhausting to the digestive system. Enter Dr. John Harvey Kellogg, a physician and health reformer. Kellogg, deeply influenced by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, believed in a clean, vegetarian diet as a way to purify both the body and the soul. In his sanatorium in Battle Creek, Michigan, he began experimenting with grains, searching for a lighter, healthier alternative to meat-heavy breakfasts. What he created would change the morning routine forever. Cornflakes. Meanwhile, across town, another figure was about to join the cereal revolution, C.W. Post. Inspired by Kellogg's experiments, Post launched his own breakfast products, marketing them not just as food, but as cures for everything from indigestion to depression. Thus began the Battle Creek Cereal Wars, a competition that would soon fuel an entire industry. But here's where the story takes a sharp turn. While Kellogg dreamed of plain, wholesome flakes to cleanse the body, later manufacturers saw something else: profit in sugar. By the mid-20th century, cereal boxes were no longer about health. They were playgrounds of bright colors, cartoon mascots, and slogans that danced in the minds of children. Characters like Tony the Tiger, Toucan Sam, and Lucky the Leprechaun weren't just selling cereal. They were selling childhood fantasies in a box. Saturday morning cartoons and breakfast tables merged into one seamless marketing pipeline. Kids begged their parents for cereals not because of nutrition, but because of the promise of fun, toys inside the box, and a sugary escape to start the day. Yet beneath the playful mascots lurked ingredients that would later spark global concern: artificial dyes, excessive sugar, and chemical additives. What Americans came to see as normal breakfast food, Europeans began to see as potential health hazards. But before we get to Europe's response, let's first look at the turning point, the moment when cereal, once born as a health movement, became one of the most sugar-laden, heavily marketed products in the American diet. Part 3. The turning point. Sugar, marketing, and the global spread of cereal. By the mid-20th century, America was booming. The post-war years brought prosperity, suburban homes, and a new wave of consumer culture. Families had televisions in their living rooms, supermarkets filled with brightly packaged goods, and children growing up in a world of jingles and mascots. This was the perfect environment for cereal companies to shift gears. What began as a health movement under Dr. Kellogg turned into a marketing empire. And the magic ingredient behind their success? Sugar. Cereal executives quickly realized that plain flakes didn't excite children. But coat them with sugar, add artificial flavors, and suddenly you had a product kids would beg their parents to buy. By the 1950s, sugar had become the backbone of the cereal industry. Brands competed to see who could make the sweetest, crunchiest, most colorful breakfast imaginable. Marketing followed suit. Saturday morning cartoons were flooded with cereal ads. Commercials didn't sell nutrition, they sold adventure. Frosted Flakes weren't just cornflakes, they were great. Lucky Charms weren't just oats, they were magically delicious. Even the cereal box itself became a battlefield of attraction. Bright colors, puzzles, free toys hidden inside, and smiling mascots that felt like friends. And it worked. By the 1970s, cereal wasn't just a food. It was a multi-billion-dollar industry. Children across America were consuming bowls filled with more sugar than dessert, often before heading to school. For many families, this became normal. Cereal wasn't questioned. It was breakfast. But outside the US, things looked different. When these cereals began spreading globally, not every country welcomed them with open arms. In Europe, where food standards were stricter and cultural views on diet more cautious, questions arose. Why are these cereals so full of sugar? Why are there artificial dyes like Red 40 and Yellow 5 that don't exist in traditional diets? What long-term impact could they have on children's health? These questions would grow louder in the decades to come, eventually leading to regulatory clashes between the US and Europe. But before we explore Europe's response, it's important to understand how deeply cereal had already woven itself into American life, so deeply that challenging it meant challenging culture itself. Part 4. The Backlash. Europe's Response and the Health Debate. By the late 20th century, cereal had become a symbol of American convenience. But across the Atlantic, regulators and scientists were sounding alarms. Europe, with its stricter food policies, began scrutinizing the very ingredients that Americans had grown up with for decades. The first major concern? Artificial food dyes. American cereals like Froot Loops, Trix, and Lucky Charms relied on bright reds, blues, and yellows to capture children's attention. But many of these dyes, such as Yellow 5, Yellow 6, and Red 40, were linked to potential behavioral issues in children, including hyperactivity. In 2007, a landmark British study, known as the Southampton Study, added fuel to the fire by suggesting a connection between artificial colors and attention problems. European regulators took this seriously. In 2010, the European Union required warning labels on products containing certain synthetic dyes, essentially discouraging their use. As a result, many cereal companies reformulated their products for European markets, using natural coloring agents like beet juice, paprika extract, and turmeric instead. Meanwhile, in the US, these same cereals continued to use the controversial dyes. No warning labels, no bans. For American consumers, the bright colors remained part of the fun, but for Europeans, they became a red flag. The second major concern was sugar. While American kids were starting their mornings with cereals containing 30 to 40% sugar by weight, European nutritionists viewed this as dangerously excessive. Public health campaigns in countries like the UK and France began criticizing cereals for fueling childhood obesity, diabetes, and poor dietary habits. Some governments even imposed stricter advertising rules, limiting how sugary cereals could be marketed to children. And then came the issue of chemicals and preservatives. Certain additives, such as BHT, butylated hydroxytoluene, were widely used in American cereals to extend shelf life. But in Europe, BHT has long been restricted or banned due to concerns about its potential impact on health. Once again, companies reformulated their products for Europe while leaving the US versions unchanged. For many European parents, this raised an unsettling question. If companies can make safer, less artificial cereals for us, why don't they do the same for American children? The cultural contrast was clear. In the US, cereal was tied to nostalgia, marketing, and convenience, an untouchable part of family life. In Europe, cereal was just another processed food, subject to skepticism, regulation, and reform. This divide didn't just expose differences in food laws. It revealed two completely different ways of thinking about what we put into our bodies. Part 5. Lessons, Legacy, and What Remains. Today, looking back, the story of cereal isn't just about breakfast. It's about how culture, commerce, and health collide. From Kellogg's original vision of wholesome cornflakes to the rainbow-colored boxes on today's supermarket shelves, cereal has traveled a long, complicated path. The lessons are clear. First, food marketing has incredible power. Generations of children grew up associating happiness with cartoon mascots and jingles, while parents, caught between convenience and cost, often gave in. Cereal became not only a meal, but also a childhood memory, making it difficult to challenge even when health experts raised concerns. Second, regulations matter. The sharp difference between Europe and America shows how much government policy can shape what ends up in our bowls. When Europe pushed back against artificial dyes, companies found natural alternatives. When America didn't, the sugary, chemical-laden formulas stayed the same. This contrast reveals a deeper truth. Corporations often adjust only when forced to do so. The legacy is mixed. On one hand, cereal has left an undeniable cultural imprint. For many, it represents Saturday morning cartoons, toy surprises inside boxes, and family kitchens filled with the sound of crunching flakes. On the other hand, it has contributed to health problems, from rising childhood obesity to sugar dependency, issues that continue to haunt public health systems today. And yet, cereal endures. Despite criticism, it remains a billion-dollar industry. New brands now market themselves as healthy alternatives, high protein, low sugar, grain-free, or organic. But even these often rely on the same nostalgia-driven marketing, proving that cereal's cultural hold is stronger than ever. For consumers, the big takeaway is awareness. Food isn't just about taste or tradition. It's about what's hidden behind the label. The fact that the same cereal can have one formula in the US and another in Europe should make us question, why are American standards more lenient? And what does that mean for our health in the long run? The truth is, cereal's story forces us to reflect on the choices we make every morning, whether we realize it or not. Part 6. The Open Ending. What the Future Holds for Breakfast. And so, we arrive at the end of this journey. From Kellogg's plain cornflakes in Battle Creek, to the rainbow-colored cereals of American supermarkets, to the stricter shelves of Europe where artificial dyes and preservatives quietly disappeared. What started as a health crusade became a sugary empire and then a public debate that continues to this very day. The truth is, cereal is no longer just food. It's a mirror. It reflects how societies set priorities, how corporations chase profit, and how governments decide whose health to protect. In America, cereal is nostalgia, a childhood symbol too powerful to be easily challenged. In Europe, cereal is a processed product, one that must meet the same scrutiny as any other packaged food. Two cultures, two approaches, one bowl of flakes at the center of it all. But what about the future? Today, health-conscious consumers are reshaping the breakfast aisle. Brands tout low sugar, high protein, organic ingredients, and gluten-free formulas. Parents read labels more carefully, and millennials and Gen Z buyers are pushing for transparency. Could this mean the end of sugary cereals as we know them? Or will nostalgia always win, keeping cartoon mascots alive for another century? And here lies the open question. If companies can make healthier cereals for Europe, why not for America? Will pressure from consumers finally force reform, or will brightly colored boxes continue to dominate American kitchens? The story of cereal is unfinished because it is still unfolding every morning in millions of homes. Every spoonful carries with it a choice between tradition and change, convenience and health, profit and responsibility. But ask yourself this. When you see that colorful box on the shelf, are you looking at breakfast? Or are you looking at a carefully crafted illusion?